It was a very ambitious thing we wanted to do. It wasn't a small scale.
It was a bloody big project on a very small budget.
Everybody that was on it took a huge risk.
Reset back to number ones.
It just seemed like a really big, daunting, expensive production.
Wow. I mean, this is going to be huge.
I mean, it looks beautiful, the characters are sexy and heroic.
Tell me why we went.
I fell in love with it. It was about time someone stood up and delivered.
Well, did you go?
My attitude every day I got up out of bed was like, we're going to do this film come hell or high water.
You know, reading it, I was thinking, God, how the hell are they going to pull this off?
It was exhaustive, it was extensive, it was very thin on resources.
You get the ones with no money but heaps of time, or the ones with no time but heaps of money. This was a combination of no money and no time.
It was just a matter of just going ahead and jumping in the deep end.
It's a very unique style of film for Australia.
I think that everyone to realise that this was not your sort of average Aussie movie.
Yeah, I originally saw Dwayne in a play called The Nothing Man, you know, and I was a big fan of his work straight away. He had this kind of intensity to his work that I didn't see in a lot of maybe actors that I was meeting at the time. And you know, we sort of talked for years about doing something, and I really wanted to take sort of my visual style and put it with something that he was doing. The sequel could kind of come out of it, because I think he approached his acting the kind of in the same method or the same kind of crazy way that I approach filmmaking, which was, you know, it is real. You know, we're not sort of, it's not a job, we're not sort of having to go at what we're doing here. This is real, you know, and for the whole life of the shoot, you know, to me Purgatory was very real.
The end product was like an evolution of an idea that was sort of brought up sitting in his car out front of his place one night, and we were both struggling.
Yeah, I think it was Boxing Day 2004, and we were sitting sort of in my room just having a chat about stuff, and you know, I kind of pitched to him this vibe of a very dark kind of anti-hero film, and something that kind of would be very independent and not sort of at that point attached to the studios, so we could do it kind of as dark and as violent as we wanted. You know, as the idea, I had so many characters and ideas sort of floating around in my head. You know, Matt Hilton Todd is my co-writer. We've sort of jammed on everything that we've ever done together.
So Shane gave me a call and said the time has come to make the first feature film. So we'd already written a couple of feature scripts that were sitting in the vault, so we kind of had our technique of writing down pat.
You know, I think from the second Matt came on board the project, I kind of knew that it was a great choice, because, you know, Matt and I worked so well together, and it was just, we could just push and push and push, and the idea just seemed to flourish from there.
The first few drafts of the script, the angels were actually the backstory, and they were taking over human bodies, and we didn't actually reveal that until the last couple of pages of the story.
We were sort of looking at this way of doing it very, you know, Indian, and we were going to like try and look at locations we could sneak into at night, shoot, and sort of run away from them. We were looking at lighting it, you know, with things like car headlights and torches and all that sort of stuff.
And you could almost wall that off, like black that off with something, and dress this as a room.
And then the script evolved and it evolved and it evolved, and that's basically, I was sort of attached to this process. This is the book, and sort of I don't highlight my lines because I'm not interested in learning the lines, and I don't want to get in any bad habits. So I really look at what's being said and what might be the clues in there, the subtext.
For the first half of this whole film's life cycle, it was going to be this thing that we did on weekends. It was going to be a thing that kind of, you know, never had any kind of, it only would have the little, you know, couple of $100 whatever we could sort of raise for it.
We sourced a lot of the early crew and started casting for the film ourselves based on the first draft. And we just recently had finished a short film with Matt Graham called Sunday Drivers that had some religious connotations in it, and one of the lead characters was called Gabriel.
Have we got time for this?
We are missionary men, Brother Gabriel, and we must respect that position.
So Shane said, let's call the film Gabriel.
As soon as the film became about Gabriel, and as soon as we sort of fell in love with what Gabriel could be and the characters that would inhabit this kind of world, you know, that was the first time I knew that this really, you know, guerrilla, no budget thing would work. I knew we still have a very minimal budget. I knew we still have to approach it in a very sort of inventive, creative way. But I knew that it was going to become something more than just a weekend kind of a shoot. This is the table where we meet at Anna's place often and talk about the film. Anna was the first one to come aboard the film, and she'd done sort of a couple of short films before, and I met her through sort of certain film festivals, and I knew she liked the short films Matt and I had been making before that.
So what am I meant to tell the Godfather, Luke, huh? I mean, we can't keep lying to him. I'm risking my salvation here.
So with that in mind, we kind of said, you know, do you want to, you know, work on this kind of weekend, you know, indie sort of film, and she was, you know, glad to come aboard and take that on.
They did try to play down exactly how big this film was going to be. Shame on them. But I don't know, I took the project because I felt passionate about it, and we haven't really been given an opportunity to do a film like this in this country before, and no one was going to help us but ourselves, and no one was going to make it but us. So that's one of the reasons I decided to do it. It wasn't a hard sell for me at all.
And how are you feeling about the shoot?
Fantastic. Ask me in a month. From my hospital bed.
Yeah, I think at the time James Vernon came aboard, that, you know, the film had kind of found its, you know, it was becoming, you know, bigger than what it was originally intended. And James really sort of, you know, James read the script and said, you know, the concepts here are good, but it's not enough yet. You know, just because you're making a low budget film, there's actually less reason, because you're not going to be able to cover the script up with big effects and heaps of style, and you're going to have to actually have a really solid story with solid characters. So we actually went back and sort of really almost rewrote the whole script, you know, from at that point.
And that rewrite, focusing more on the backstory, more on Gabriel, is pretty much the film you see today.
You talk as if I've already lost.
And then as the film grew and sort of Screen Core became more involved, we got Christy Vernon on board as well, and she kind of, we really needed someone like Christy, because we kind of had a lot of enthusiasm and passion, and we kind of needed someone who maybe had worked in the industry a little bit more in a professional sense.
I remember getting the first script and thinking, wow, this is big, and how are we going to do it? But then when the sixth draft came through, and I knew I was fully on board at that stage, and I remember reading the scene where the soup kitchen blew up and thinking, oh dear, probably not words like that, but how are we going to do this?
I mean, anything to do with a genre film like this, the look of it is half the mission to get right, you know, because it's a concept film. You kind of have to get the audience in. We had no stars. I'm a first-time director. The producers are first-time producers. There's no one attached to this film, you know, in the sort of the hub sense that sort of had any real credits to their names.
Prior to getting our production designer, Victor Lamb, who was a brilliant production designer, we previously had someone on board before that, and he was a very, very talented, and is a very talented production designer and art director. And when he looked at the budget, he freaked out a little and just said that the upfront budget that we wanted to shoot on wouldn't even cover art department, which didn't deter us at all, but did make us think, wow, we have taken on a very, very big project.
And I actually said, I remember saying to us that there's going to be someone out there who's as crazy as we are making this film, who's going to understand the way to do this. We knew we needed someone who was absolutely as crazy as we were, and that's when we met Victor Lamb.
I actually heard about the film a month and 2 weeks beforehand, and contacted Shane and Anna and just had a good chat.
What we would often do is we went out to a lot of big abandoned industrial estates, and we would sort of look around and try and find the you know, a section or at least two walls or something that could be half our set. So because we didn't have the budget to build full sets, we had to kind of just go with what was there. And you know, the soup kitchen was a perfect example. It was an old factory room, but it was just empty, and it had 3 green walls. And I kind of called Victor in and I said, Victor, we've got to make this into a soup kitchen. Remembering we have to obviously work within a budget.
But there was never a moment when I go, oh, maybe I couldn't do it. No, it was always yes, we can do it. It's just a matter of how. That's the whole mentality.
Things like going to the tip and or the dump, and you know, and finding stuff off the side of the road, and shopping at St Vincent de Paul. We couldn't have knew by doing all those things that we could achieve this.
Through the whole design process, we were able to cut down a lot of the unnecessary expenditures and still create the look that we wanted.
The underground was one of the first locations we found. I was there for a recce, for a location recce for another shoot.
That location there is great, so art department can come in and enhance the environment, but we don't have to build this whole thing from scratch.
So we could kind of take a crappy set and then destroy it even further, and sort of get really old stuff that people wouldn't necessarily want to dress the sets with. And that's how the world would come to life, because it would look like, you know, we spent a lot of money to create a look which was bigger than what it really was.
When Pete came on board, there was another director of photography who I'd sort of worked a lot of ideas and stuff like that with, and he actually had to go and do another film, which is kind of a blessing in a way, because it brought us to Pete. You know, fate brought all these people, I think, on board the project.
You're in a completely unique world. I mean, every script is different, every film is different. Certainly, I wanted to serve the script well by creating a visual style that complemented it, and I think we did that. And I think what we did was we actually went back to really old school kind of film noir techniques, and translated those into a colour environment and very minimalist kind of lighting.
You know, I don't think I ever once really questioned or talked to him much about the way he did his job and lit the film. I kind of left into it. I kind of would talk about the general tone and the look, and so films like Highlander, The Crow, and Blade Runner. You know, all those films tonally were what we kind of used to match the look and feel of how this film would be, because it had to fit within their family.
Well, I think one of the biggest issues for me, one of the biggest fears, was actually not having a crew, because there's an awful lot of night shoots in the rain. No one's being paid, and if there's no one there to put the lights up, or to move the dolly, or to operate the Steadicam, or to pull the focus, then there's no film. I think that was my fear.
You know, he's very kind of humble kind of a guy. You know, and I'm very, I talk a million miles an hour, and sometimes it's even hard to understand what I say. And I'd walk on set and like go crazy and point, and we're going to do this, and the camera's going to move here, and I'd go at a million miles an hour, but he'd always understand. And the first few days I had to get used to it, because I'd look at him after going crazy, and this is what we're going to do, and that, and Peter just, because his English background, just nodding, very good, and he just tinkle off, and then the lights would go up, and everything would kind of work.
So let's just walk through the shot anyway.
He doesn't know how many times, like how much he brought to the film. I don't think he'll ever know how much he probably brought to the film.
When it started getting closer to things going, then it started heating up a bit, and people started questioning who's going to do what role.
Shane and Anna had already done some preliminary casting, and I could see they were struggling to get people to take notice of them.
It was a difficult process, actually, calling all the agents and not getting the response you wanted or access to actors that you wanted.
And so I figured that maybe Faith Martin would add credibility to our plight in getting decent actors. And so James and I spoke to Faith, and she was quite happy to help out, which then brought on board the top agents, which then brought on board the credibility which allowed us to get them to come to the auditions.
And so there come a point where I had to go in with Faith Martin and sort of get put under the microscope, I guess, as Gabriel.
Yeah, well, for the longest time, Dwayne was Gabriel, and we developed the script with that kind of with him in mind, and we'd gone through such a long evolution, with him and that character, that when it came time to casting the other roles, Faith Martin, who did our casting, she kind of was watching Dwayne, and she said to me, he's got such a presence, or such a, at that point in his life, he had such a dark energy to him that she said perhaps we should think about him playing, you know, the supervillain, which, you know, and I thought about that, and that was such a big move for him to change from Gabriel to becoming Michael. But we sat down and we talked about it, and he watched back, and we actually got some other guys in to do different interpretations of Gabriel, and we sort of saw the people that were going for the Michael role. And I think that was about the time that we kind of both said, wow, you know, like, that's what this film needs. This film needs your weight to play that villain.
He was in such a dark place from the earlier scripts that I don't think he could get out of that in time to become Gabriel and have the light inside of him.
And it wasn't until I saw the tape, and I remember sitting with Shane on my bed watching a playback, that it wasn't until I watched that I really actually saw myself that, yeah, although I, you know, could play Gabriel, Michael, it was just there. And it was actually inspiring again, because I've been on the project so long and it had changed that many times and put back that many times that, you know, I think I was just running on empty. And then to change over brought in some new inspiration, you know.
And so when it came time to cast Gabe, there was two other guys who were more well known in the Australian industry, who Faith kind of, you know, said they're kind of safer bets. And then Andy came.
I heard through the film from my agent, and they said, you've got an audition for the lead in an independent movie, and I said, well, I can't do it. Like, I can't. I'm actually going to have a break from acting, because it was a time where, you know, I had a young son, and, you know, there was lots of stuff going on. I just felt I needed to kind of simplify things. So anyway, she said, just go, have a blast. Went and did it, and a few days later, my agent rang and said, you've got it, you've got the part. And I was like, okay, well, I can't do it.
Is there not enough love and compassion in our hearts to overcome this?
I think it was like my mum and my girlfriend and everyone, they all kind of got together, and we were sort of sitting at home, and I showed Matt as well, and I said, these are the three we've got. And when Andy came up on the screen, I think it was sort of safe to say any female that saw him loved him and really thought he had a great presence. And actually reminded me, you know, of a lot of the kind of more international, I guess you'd say, stars that you know, I'm familiar with.
I think I'm hungry.
Andy had a really bad audition because he was so, he had so much nervous energy that he was using it as aggression. So he kind of came in playing Gabriel like this real tough, angry, kick-ass, take no prisoners kind of guy.
I have no desire to fight you, Gabriel. Shoot me if you must, but I beg you hear what I have to say first.
I never trust your kind.
You know, and I always saw him as a much more naive, almost an adolescent that would you know, grow from a child to a teenager to an adult over the course of the film.
Something's wrong here. It's Michael.
Okay.
That's what I want to say. I just want to see that kind of going from the war to that realisation.
Okay. You know, I actually, when he wasn't going so well, I kind of sat him down because I could see something in him. I knew there was something about him which was really good, and I had him sit in front of the camera, and I said, okay, I'm just going to say 4 simple things to you, and I just want you to kind of slowly move with that.
Doubts, you're conflicted. Show me too much here, show me too much conflict, show me more conflict than you normally would. Trying to figure it out, that's it.
And the changes were so subtle. Once he sort of calmed down and he just sat there and did those 4 basic emotions, I knew his instincts were right. I knew he had good instincts. So we took a gamble, and you know, I'm so glad we did.
And that was about 3 weeks before we started shooting on set.
If only we could sleep.
You be here about the Orbia? I'll be thinking Malak is dead.
When Kevin came in for his audition, he had a shock. He had an absolute shocker because when he first came in, you could just tell he had a lot of angst, I guess, towards us and the shoot, and he was so rude to everyone in the audition and the casting process.
It was really funny because when we were in there, I looked at Shane. I thought, who the fuck is this guy, man? You know, who? No. he's a director. No.
But I think the fun thing about that was that was Aaron.
And you be knowing, didn't you? You be knowing about these things.
He had such attitude that I knew that if he could bring that same attitude he gave to us, to the character and to Gabriel, against Gabriel and Samael, I knew that we would find the essence of who Aaron was.
A couple more.
Shane, he was feeding me, information, but he wasn't really saying anything. He would just go with that sort of, right.
Michael Piccirilli was one of the first guys cast for the film. I just loved. He reminds me a little bit of Puck from Midsummer Night's Dream in this movie. So that kind of naughty imp.
Yeah, I knew I could give it a good crack, Always I don't think it's ever good to be that comfortable with what you're doing, because that's too safe.
Bitches. They come. They go.
Asmodeus being the demon king of lust and all things sexual, I knew that there was no better man than Pitch to play that, because he's such a playful, colourful kind of character in real life.
It was a good role because he was not like me.
We originally were looking at someone different for Lilith, and I actually had no idea of who Erica Hannes was, or that she'd sort of been this personality, this television personality. When she came in, she was so strong and had such a presence, and she just kicked ass.
And tell me why we wait.
She just fucking came in, did about 3 takes of it.
How could you just let this happen? Asmodeus is dead because of you.
Your cast, that was tops.
When I first got given the script, I thought to myself, this is something I've got to be involved in. And the way I am, I went up to Shane in the beginning and went, look, give me the big bad guy. I want to play the big bad guy. He goes, no, sorry, it's already been taken. Oh, okay.
At that point, Moloch was a smaller character, but I really still wanted him to be part of it. And once I cast Goran, and I saw the intensity and what he, in the small time he had, what he wanted to bring to that character. When it came time to do pickups, I wrote more and made the big knife fight with Kyle, and we made it a lot, the character as big as we could, given the fact that he's the intro kind of bad guy.
You looking for someone?
I'm happy to get somebody like Moloch, who is, one of the boys that's battling around with Gabriel. So any way that I could jump into this would be ideal for me.
For my character in the film Ethereal, I had to audition in front of Faith Martin, as per the rest of the cast.
When we write, we don't kind of pick a role and say, Matt, you're going to be in the film, because he is an actor as well.
We never write something specifically with me in mind. It's just the story plays out, and then hopefully there's something for me in there. And Ethereal did jump out at me, and fortunately I was right for the part.
He had to re-audition, and I think that was really tricky for him, because he was really under the pump to get it right.
Whenever you're a filmmaker and an actor, you're constantly being judged from both sides of that fence.
Why have the 6 of us before you failed? I'm doing the best that I can.
What have you done?
Yeah, I'd known Jack for quite a while, and Jack was, Jack and I talked about, other stuff, and he's obviously got that big, sort of deep, heroic voice.
I actually caught up with Shane. I'd met him, I'd heard about him through a few people, this inspiring young director.
But I didn't actually think about Jack for Gabriel. I actually pictured Raphael as a little bit older. But when he came to Faith Martin brought him in, and when I saw him, it kind of clicked that this would be a guy, because in our story, Raphael was the general of the armies of the light. And Jack could be that character. He could be the kind of guy who would lead men into battle.
As it stands, you have no chance of beating Samael. His power has no equal. This was the mistake both Amitil and I made, Michael too.
I felt strongly that he kind of really did personify who Raphael would have been in the light. Hence, once he got down to Purgatory, there was still that essence of him there, that remnants of who he once was.
Have you ever felt fear, Gabriel? Because I do. I feel it all the fucking time.
Uriel was interesting because Uriel had such a like he was having probably the biggest personal crisis out of all these people at the time, and when he came into the audition, he actually just broke down.
Yeah, I remember going through a personal crisis at the time, which, in hindsight, I suppose helped me tap into certain emotions. I was really messed up that day. Luckily for me, so was Uriel.
With no goddamn voices or feelings, Gil.
And Harry just brought this, I guess this madness or this insanity to the character, and after about 5 minutes with him, I actually believed this was a guy who had been here too long, had succumbed to all the fear and all the sort of all the evils and the poisons that could sort of he could get his hands on, and someone who ultimately was like a failed character, someone who'd spent too long on that bus, you know. And when you see what he went through to prepare for the role, I mean, he went down and lived in a caravan for you know, about a week, and you know, isolated himself and lived on bad foods and drank a lot. And
I have a caravan sitting on a block of land. And yeah, it's surrounded by national parks, seaside coves. It's beautiful. It's a perfect preparation. I embarked on, you know, achieving Uriel's psychological state. I had rations of food just to get by. Aha! That's what happens when your fridge doesn't work. Basically, I became a recluse.
I embraced that kind of method, or that real everyone staying in character, everyone, you know, being the character.
She's not your concern.
And Brendan's really interesting. He's like Val, who played Belial. They both kind of, you know, that they came in and they had smaller parts. And I said to Brendan especially, I said, like, if you make this real, people remember this scene. People remember this character if you can make this scene sort of real.
What he wanted was, like you go and see a movie and there's certain characters in there that you remember. And that's how he saw that scene, was this Bellin character was meant to, was the type of character that he wanted, I suppose, people to remember as being particularly evil and to symbolise the much darker side of what was going on.
And I remember talking to him about all the kind of most debaucherous, messed up kind of shit I could. And you know, and I said, you have to want to do that in this scene. I don't want you to come in and fucking play, act and pretend that, you know, you want to do this thing. I want you to come in with full-blown intent. I need you in your head thinking about what you're going to do to Amateel or Jade. And you need to believe it with the absolute core of your soul.
So you see, Jade, we're both going to enjoy the pleasure of your fine company, whether you like it or not.
And I gave him some music. One of my favourite bands is Pantera, which to me is like music I relax to.
Which is pretty heavy sort of music, not the sort of stuff I normally listen to. So on the day I actually left home, said goodbye to the wife and kids, and kisses, cuddles, high fives, got in the car and put this CD on and then listened to that all the way in. So a lot of people screaming and shouting and talking about nasty things. So I was able to, I suppose, shut off for when I got on set.
I knew for him, who listened to John Denver and sort of softer music, I knew that this would work in his favour. So I gave him about 4 tracks of Pantera and told him to sort of embrace the words and the thing in the way he would.
And if anything, I think I focused on what Bellin wouldn't do as opposed to what he would do. Because for me, I suppose as a person, I've got certain characteristics and things that I had to shut down in order to, I suppose, come across, or try to come across as being somebody who was particularly evil.
Don't be driven by hate.
You don't know what's going on.
With Sam and I were playing Jade, I think she got cast about a week before we were supposed to shoot. So at that point we'd seen close to 45 different girls and no one kind of fit the part. And Andy knew Sam, and she'd just done an American film which was doing quite well at the box office. So yeah, we cast her, and her and Andy had a great sort of a chemistry, and she brought with her a lot more. She had a lot more industry experience. She's a kind of consummate professional, Sam is. So I think she also helped Andy because Andy was quite new to this kind of a thing. So I think the two of them worked well together.